Good morning. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our webinar today for Ontario exporters. We're delighted you could join us all. Thank you so much. We know that, it's December, so time is even more precious than normal and even more rushed than normal. So we really appreciate that you take the time today, come and join us for this webinar where we're going to talk about sort of social media, we're going to talk about trade shows, about how to reach your prospective buyers, how to engage with them, and that. So without further ado, just while the last of you logging on there, I can see, I'm just going to quickly introduce us all, although each presenter will also introduce themselves when they come on to give you share their experiences. So Maurizio Ospina, all of you probably already know him. He is an absolute bedrock of Ontario exporters assistance programs. So he is the area director for the USA and for the ICT sector for the Ministry of Economic Development, Job Creation and Trade. So Maurizio, it's great that he's here today to talk about the programs, the trade shows that are going on, the trade missions, and share some of his experience and some of his know-how on what he's seen works really well for Ontario companies when they go to trade shows. So that's going to be, Maurizio is going to be talking first. And then Aaron Kelly is the CEO and president of a company called ASI, Advanced Symbolics. It is basically Ask Polly. It is at the cutting edge of social listening. And it's something I'm very excited about as well. We as a company are very excited about. So really, really excited to have Erin here. And she is an Ontario born and bred company and had real big success at some of the trade shows recently and wants to share some of that experience with you. The do's, don'ts, and how she managed to get really sort of, really punch through and get fantastic results. And then myself and my colleague Ava. So my name is Susanna Hardy. I'm Chief Content Officer at IBT Online. IBT Online we're a full stack online marketing company. So basically we build websites, all different kinds, and we do online marketing, all different kinds. Our wheelhouse is everything that's online and everything that's international. So we're known for our export international side. Ava Mitzi will join us a bit later. She is the business development manager for Canada, based in Montreal. So if you want to get in touch, that's the email to use. Sorry, it's right on the edge of that slide. That's not very good. It's am@ibt.onl. That's Ava. Our agenda today, we're going to start with Maurizio, as I said, talking about best practices. Then Erin's going to go through some of the digital strategies for international markets and particularly show you some of the success routes she made in trade shows. And then I'm going to circle back and give a sort of more general view, bird's eye view of some of the big social media and online trends. We have reserved some time at the end for questions. This is a time that you've taken out of your day to learn about this. So we encourage you to take full advantage. Ask your questions. Don't be shy. Put them in the chat box. We will get to them. Thank you. And with that, I'm going to turn over to Maurizio and let's get started. We've got a lot to go through. Maurizio.
Good morning, and thank you to Ava, Susanna Hardy, and Erin Kelly for joining us on this program. Most of the attendees know me by now. My job is to help Ontario technology companies export into the US. We offer consulting services. We also bring buyers from outside Canada to meet with Ontario suppliers, and we take companies to market via trade missions. In fact, 3 days ago, we held an incoming buyers program with 5 large companies from the US, Mexico, Japan, and Korea. Some of you may have participated. And each year, we led approximately 70 trade missions to key markets around the world. Once a month, I sent a newsletter with updates on our export programs, which include missions such as the ones that you see on the screen, the first one being CES this January with 16 companies. I'll be adding all of you. Of course, you can opt out, but it's only once a month, and it's probably the most resourceful export resource that we have to reach out to you, to the community. Now, in exporting, let's start with the basics. Exporting takes financial and human resources. This invariably includes regular trips to the target market. For Kunal Gupta, CEO of Polar Mobile, a Toronto-based leading company in the publishing sector, it took 25 trips to New York City. Experience also means focus. This includes regular trips to the market, to the target market. You cannot be at different places at all times. Good exporters pick their markets well. And of course, when you export, there are myths and truths. One major myth is that I have no competition. Well, that probably means that you have not researched the market well, or you define your product too narrowly, and so there's no clients for it. But we all have competitors, so we got to know the market. Another myth, it's that I can do everything online. I can sell online. But that's usually for small deals or for B2C. For B2B, for investors, for big decisions, the buyer, the other party needs to see you face to face, especially when it comes to major decisions or major investors. And you cannot have accidental relationships unless you are in the market meeting people. So you got to travel and spend money. Another common myth on the next slide is that you actually can sell to the US or foreign parent of the Canadian subsidiary. That's actually easier said than done. Or that it takes too long to sell internationally. I'm not going to bother with the foreign markets, even in the US. It all depends. For example, in the US, things move fast, except for the government, education, and health sectors, like ours. Things are slow, the decision making is slower, and the budget timelines are longer, 1, 2, 3 years. In other sectors, it tends to be quite fast. One of our core services is trade missions. I mentioned this before. That is a group of companies traveling to a foreign market led by a foreign representative like myself. For example, in January, I mentioned on the previous slide, Susana, I will be taking a group of companies to CES. All these trade missions require preparation with not just all the paperwork, but also the material, social media, but also the staff. This is important, especially if you are going to a trade show. You should have a major announcement ready with a proper press release and high energy staff and a good social media plan, hence this webinar. During the mission, and especially if there is a trade show, your staff should be assertive and direct, not shy, not like us Canadians in general. And we got to be ready to engage with the media. Your staff should also divide and conquer, and that's the next slide, with a proper schedule and goals for each day. At the end of the day, your team should reconvene, debrief, and measure results, because right after that is the follow-up. And I'll tell you, I've had many cases of Americans and people telling me, you Canadians don't follow up the way it should be. We tend to be a bit shy about it. Well, that means reconnecting on social media, ideally with personalized messages. Now, you remember the company Polar Mobile I mentioned at the start? They were one of my clients. That's the next slide, Susana. The company decided they came with me to the US, and they were bombarded with so many business cards, so many people from different places, not just cities, but places around the world. We talked about it, and they decided to focus on New York and London being the homes of the publishing sector in the US and in England. In only a few years, they actually became Canada's leader in their sector, with clients in more than 30 countries, staffing half of them, and they raised $14 million to date. That's focus. Another example of focus, it's a company that I actually took to New York back in 2012. They decided to focus on that city only because the market was huge. 6 months later, they had doubled the revenue. I asked them to come with me to another program a year later, and they said, nope, we're still busy here. We're spending 2 days a week in New York, attending local events, seminars, all of this to build a local presence. That's focus, that is persistence. One last case study. This one is related to immigration, a true case, and it happens often. A few years ago, I led this trade mission to Washington, D.C. with 12 cybersecurity companies. One of the people coming with me was the CEO of one particular Ontario company. And he called me frantic from the US border, telling me that the immigration official from the US side, he didn't let him go. And he said, I'm sorry, I'm not going to join you because they're not letting me go. So I said to him, tell me exactly what happened. Well, the US border had asked him if there was, the usual questions, why are you traveling and going to a trade show, which is perfectly legal and fine. And they asked him, is there anybody else traveling with you? He should have said, no, just me, because it's the truth. It was just him traveling from Canada. Instead, he said, well, I have a rep based in Washington, D.C. He's going to join me. And that's a huge red flag, because with that, he is admitting that he is going to supervise to work in the US, for which you will require a separate visa. With our regular visa, we don't need a visa. We can travel and seek out business, but not sell, not work. Americans worry about two things, jobs and security. So that was the problem. Next time, the lesson is keep short, keep it simple. I actually told him, you know what, grab somebody else's car and cross from another point, because back then they used to flag the plates, not the person. Not anymore. Don't do that. But you got to be honest. And if you need to do some work, you need to bring proper documentation and get the proper visa. Canadians can enter the US to attend trade shows, to make non-paid presentations, and to fulfill contracts. But you got to show the paperwork. Thank you. Before I finish, I want to mention that that's all I had to say. I wanted to mention that the registration you made was at IBT Online, and they have your email addresses, but they are very generous. They will not contact you unless you contact them. However, feel free to reach out to my fellow panelists, Erin, Susana, and Eva, for if you wish to engage them. Thank you. And over to, I believe it's Erin.
Oh, before we hand over to Erin, Mauricio, thank you so much for that. That was really succinct and full of information. By the way, I've already been asked a couple of times, you will all get a recording of the webinar, so you don't have to take notes of all the things from Mauricio. You will get a recording. And again, I just why don't we just ask you all, how's it going? Are you already ready for your trade shows? What's going on? How's that pull? Are you preparing for the next ones? Are you fully prepared? Is it a disaster? Where are you on the scale? And I can give you a little bit of feedback on that. First of all, thank you very, very much for the quick tapping. That's appreciated. Almost all of you have responded. The vast majority, actually a good third of you say you have no trade shows on the schedule right now, but the bulk of you, the vast bulk of you, are saying hasn't really started or just barely starting. So work to be done. Thank you so much. I'm going to close that poll and turn over to Erin now to talk about ASI and Ask Polly. Erin.
Great. And do I work my own screen, Susanna?
No, it's me.
Okay. Well, hi, everyone. And Mauricio, that was fantastic. Very much echoed my own company's experience. We're in 42 countries now, but we did start just focused on North America, and then you get introduced and all of that kind of stuff. So I'm going to speak to you. I was at the CES trade show with Mauricio and the gang last year. And I guess as Mauricio will testify, we had a ton of press experience. We were covered by Forbes. We got a lot of attention, a lot of people expressly seeking out our booth. And I guess everybody noticed that. And so Mauricio asked me to come and explain what it was we did to get attention. So just to establish our cred, that's me being interviewed on the media. We're very good at getting media attention. As you see, we've been covered in the BBC, the Globe, Forbes, the Wall Street Journal. I think there's even more than this. This is just to give you an idea. We're regularly interviewed in the media. And just to give you a little bit of background on what we do, we are the world's first real-time human observatory of human behavior. So we have really used our product to get earned media. You can use these type of techniques to get earned media as well. Earned media about your industry. The media loves interesting stories, things that they haven't heard elsewhere. And that's what we're really good at, is figuring out what's new and interesting, a different perspective on things that then get us interviewed. So happy to answer any questions on that, but I'll give you some examples. If we get to the next slide, when it comes to, if we get the next slide, yeah, when it comes to, I'm sorry, my slides aren't fancy, put them together quickly. When it comes to doing a trade show like CES, what I tell my staff is 50% of the work is before the show, getting all of that preparation in advance. 45% of the work is after the show, as Maurizio mentioned, that follow-up that Canadians aren't good at, you got to get good at it, because that's where the business is. You are not doing any business at the show. I promise you that. At the show, that's 5% of the work. If you've done your prep well, I had a whole itinerary for my staff who are at CES with every hour accounted for, including the evenings where they were doing parties. Okay, so we got, well, I'll show you in a second, but we knew everything that was going to happen at CES ahead of time, because there's so many options when you're there that if you wait until you get to Vegas and then start deciding where you're going to go, it's going to take you so much time just to figure it out that you'll end up missing a lot of opportunities. So while you're at the show, you should be a robot. You know what you're doing it, you know what parties you're going to, you know how long you're staying there, and when you're going to the next party, and that's it. So if we go to the next slide now, we'll go through a bit of what the preparation is before the show. So if you're part of Maurizio's contingency, you will get media lists from CES. And it helps if you have time. It depends on how much prep time you have, right? We went through some of these media lists and looked to see what kind of stories these journalists covered. And we picked the ones that we were going to really go after versus the ones that we were just going to send 1 or 2 MailChimps and see how it went, okay? You load them up into MailChimp, because then, or any other software that tells you, the key thing is to know when people have opened your email, because the journalists who took the time to open your email, they were captivated by the very important subject header that you put in there, which has got to be a catchy story, not meet me at CES. Okay, that's not interesting. It has to be something really grabby. And then you focus on the journalist who opened your email because they were interested enough to read it. So, and I'll show you what you put into the email. Obviously, you have to tell them where they can meet you. If you have a booth, that's great. You put your booth number, all of that kind of thing. Do not pay. You will be bombarded with people saying, I've got the attendee list, I've got the media list. You'll have people bombarding you saying, I can introduce you to Forbes, I can do all this. What you'll end up in is the Indiana Courier, okay? And you will have paid a lot of money for it. If you're interesting, you will get earned media. And learn to be interesting, because even if you pay and you're not interesting, you won't get covered. So it's better to not pay and have to put the stress on yourself to be interesting, because interesting gets covered. Journalists are looking for things to cover. We were Forbes, and if you do Advanced Symbolics Forbes CES, you'll see that we were called one of the most interesting AI presentations at CES, which is quite good. We use that now for our customers. We don't use that to get customers. We use that to impress the prospects we're talking to. Hey, Forbes says we're the most interesting thing out there. Oh, okay. So that's what you use it for. Apply to speak on panels and then be persistent. So when we first applied to speak on a panel, we're this startup company in Canada, they were like, thanks, but no thanks. But then we kept following up because guess what? Some panelists drop out. They can't make it. And if you happen to call that day and say, hey, you know what? We're still here and we can talk AI. That's how we got on a panel. They were like, oh, somebody actually just jumped out and your CEO will do it? Absolutely, she'll do it. Great. I was on a panel with other AI companies at CES because we were persistent. We filled in for a cancellation. We got 3 contracts out of that. So yay. Investors. So if you're doing a raise, you want to see who's going to be at CES. There are no reliable lists of here are the investors that are going to be at CES. So this is a matter of getting a list of investors, which you should have. If you don't have it, go to Mars in Toronto, Invest Ottawa here in Canada. They're fantastic. Now, they're not going to have a ready list of here's going to be at CES, but they will help you curate who would invest in your type of company. You, again, put it in MailChimp and you say, hey, I'm going to be at CES, would love to meet with you. You see who opened it. A lot of them will just even respond to you. If you tell them where your booth is and all that, they'll come and visit. Parties, I can't say enough. This is actually where the business happens, at the parties, okay? This is a quick way to people get to know you. They sit with you, they have a few drinks with you. So there will be hundreds of them at CES. There are people who broker the parties who can, they have the list of all of them, and that's kind of worth investing in. It's not very expensive, and then you can see what are all the parties and how are you going to do your Irish exit. Irish exit is when you come in, you meet a lot of people, you go out, you go to the next party. Do as many of those as you can. Some of them you'll end up staying at. That's where all the business happens. When you sign up for CES, you will also, they have an app. Get yourself on that app early, because when you're on the app, I mean, yes, you might want to go through the app and find people, but if you message them, how do they get back to you if you're not set up on the app? You look very elementary if you're not on the app. So get yourself in there with a photo, serious. Again, really think about how you describe yourself in the app. Nobody wants to read a paragraph. It needs to be a sentence or two about why you're cool, where you're going to be, and who you want to meet. Go on social media and tell people you're going to CES and just say, hey, who else is going to be there? People will write back to you and say, I'm going to be there. Great. They'll, even if they're not necessarily customers or investors, they have their network. It's great to have a friend or 10 or 100 at CES. They'll know the parties. They'll introduce you to people. I've already started talking to people like from England and everything, and I'm going to be meeting at CES. And follow the hashtag CES and meet people online. Like, go on Twitter, see who else is talking about it, participate in the conversation. Participate in the conversation before you start, asking to meet people, because they want to get to know you first. Okay, so it's good. So all of this, it's December and CES is in a month. You should already be doing these things. Like, if you're not doing these things already, because I was doing CES the first week of December. Okay, and before Christmas, I had everything nailed. Okay, next. Now I'm going to show you a bit of what we sent out. So the emails, the shorter the better. Now, we had different emails for different people. This is just an example. So if you remember where ChatGPT, we wouldn't say this now because nobody wants to be the ChatGPT of market research, but ChatGPT had just come out in November. This is December. We're telling people we're kind of like that. We're an AI that automatically gives you market research reports, etc. So Suzanne, if you can click on hopefully it'll pop up on yours. Just click the envelope first. Yeah. Is it not popping anything up? Don't link to the the full report's not what I want to do right now. Do you want me to share my screen? Okay, here we go. It's not showing up the way. No, that's the report. I wanted to show the email. Can you click on the envelope? No, okay. It's probably easier if I share my screen. Do you want me to share my screen?
Sure.
Or I can describe what the email looked like, but it's probably better if I can show it.
You should be able to.
I'm not seeing anything here that allows me to share my screen. I'm not seeing anything that says share or. Oh, here we go, over on this side. Let me look. I'm not as familiar with this software.
You
Show my
should be able
screen.
to.
Okay. Okay. So make another attendee the presenter. People can see your screen. So can you see my screen, or
I just see.
can you see that?
Beginning to. There we go.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. So I'll put it in presenter mode and I'll switch this around. Swap. Okay. All right. So, and I'll move this because you're looking at. Are you just seeing my presentation, or you're seeing the little video window? You seeing just my presentation now?
Just the presentation.
Okay, good. Okay, so, okay. Okay. So you see here, we don't have any paragraphs in our emails because journalists don't have time to read paragraphs. It's ChatGPT has market research. We're launching this at CES, and then we have a video. You probably won't be able to hear the audio because I'm on a head screen, but you click the video. Hold on. Hold on. Can you hear it? So,
summary and see the
Can you
full
hear it?
demographic breakdown,
Yes.
including age,
Oh, absolutely.
region, gender,
So anyway, you
and
get
a
the
time
idea.
series to find out who's
It gave them a full video. I had so many things going on my YouTube there, but it gave you a full video of it, and it was to tell them what they as journalists will get out of it. So statistically validate your stories, your journalism stories with Ask Polly. So Polly gives journalists and freelance writers access to the statistically valid data they need to make their stories more compelling at an accessible price, get custom unique market research, catch up with us. Here's our booth, the Venetian Expo booth. It tells us about our panel discussion. It also has a link to our Ask Polly Tuesday podcast so that they can see. This is actually a podcast that's specific for journalists so that they can see how they can use this data for their story. So it's about them. It's about what's compelling for them. There's not a lot of paragraphs to read here. It's very quick. This video is 30 seconds, gives them a quick overview. There you go. We got a lot of journalists coming to our booth for that. Then we had the full report. Suzanne was linking to, pull it up here, where we, if they had even more interest, we went through and we show them how you can use data to make the story that much more compelling. Okay. So we sent that to journalists, and we then could monitor, did they watch the video? Did they open the email? Did they watch the video? Did they actually click through to the story? And so the ones that clicked through to all of them, we knew those were the ones that were going to be most interested in what we had. Sorry, that we didn't have that on the first one. We had that on the second one. That's what it was. So the first one was the teaser, and then the second one was thanks for coming to visit our booth. So this is you follow up 3 days after the conference. Don't follow up the next day because they probably took the red eye home and they're exhausted. So you give them 3 days to get settled, and then you do a follow-up and you say, thanks for coming to our booth. Hi, Dan, thanks for coming out to our booth. This is the report that you did when you were at our booth. Benefits of a digital dollar. So, and this is not necessarily journalists, it's anybody who came to our booth. We have other things that you can look at. And then if you, we also had a link, which I can't show you, to the report. And that's where we had this report. So your digital dollar report, like I just showed you, it has all of this data. So that's for what we were doing. Now, let's say you're not a market research firm. What will you give them as a follow-up? Because you don't want to just say, thanks for coming. Do you want to buy my product? Maybe it's a follow-up of market research to say, hey, you know what? Pete, this product is growing by leaps and bounds. Here's a little thing. Here's how it can help your business. So this person was interested in digital dollars. So we gave them a market research report on a digital dollar. whatever you do to get that follow-up and to get them to want to do a follow-up meeting with you, you do have to give them something interesting, is what we found. So we had quite a few customers, and what we did was we gave them data on their product that showed how our product would help them to be successful. So that's that. That's I'm going to stop sharing my screen so I can see the group again. Have I stopped sharing my screen?
I'm not sure.
Oh, I can't hear anything now.
Oh dear.
Unfortunately, I can't hear stuff now.
Ah, interesting. I think that we're back onto my screen, Erin, and I just did want to ask you one or two questions, but you seem to have, Erin, can you hear us now?
Okay, now I can hear again.
Now you can hear. Just a quick question has come in. Just a very quick question. We have some other questions coming in later. Just, Erin, very quickly, how many people did you take to this trade show? How many were you? Not sure if you can hear us or talk. Okay, well, we'll get on to that one. Technology, right. Thank you all for that, and let's move on. Actually, I think I'll tell you what, I'm gonna launch another poll and give Erin a moment to get her audio back. I just wanted to ask you all before I start talking a little bit more about what kind of social media platforms your company uses at the moment. Some of you might not be on social media at all. Who knows? But if you can tick multiple boxes on this one, by the way. And you're very, very reactive, which I really appreciate. Thank you very much for being so reactive. I can tell you one thing: almost all of you are on LinkedIn, which is great. Very much B2B. And the lowest seems to be Instagram, although X is just above that. So the lowest would be Instagram and X, but almost all of you are on LinkedIn. Thank you very much. And Erin, I don't know if you can hear us or yes, we can.
Okay. So yes. So how many of us were at CES? Believe it or not, because this was right after COVID, we had a lot of staff who were worried about being at a big conference. So we only had 3 of us. We called it the Coalition of the Willing. And here's how we worked it, by the way. We took turns doing the booth. We had people out on the floor to bring people to the booth. And we always made sure that somebody was standing across from the booth and then somebody at the booth so that we could get people from the other side and guide them into our booth. But only 3 people. And we still got a lot of publicity and good business.
Very busy 3 people. Thank you, Erin. Right, I'm going to talk a little bit about sort of what we're seeing from Mauricio asked me as well to give you sort of more of a bird's eye view on some of the latest things. So I thought I'd talk in a circular way. I want to talk about sort of the changing face of sales that we see from our clients and from what we're seeing online. Then I'm going to talk particularly about what a buyer persona is and how you engage with your buyers in trade shows, on social media, and more in general. And then circle back with some of the latest trends and takeaways. Right, see if I can, I thought I'd also just perhaps introduce who we are again. So IBT Online, we're a full stack online marketing company, and we're really, really known for our international reach for that. And that means this key phrase, which is relevant to your local buyer. And that's going to come back a couple of times. And I just sort of wanted to if you're interested, you can go onto our website. There's quite a lot of retail there. There's a lot of assets that you can download and grab and figure out that might be of use to you and helpful to you. So, and then check out our videos and our mission statements and so on. We have these online global programs for our clients. I think the most important thing to note is really that it's all about top line growth. Anything you do online is about your top line growth. I'm going to skip the rest of the video, but if you wanted to watch any of those other videos that we have on, please feel free. Let's see how I can skip this. There we go. No, that's not what I want. No, next slide. Where's the next slide? Here we go. There's also a Canadian playbook for Canadian exporters, which if you're interested in it, we are happy to send you a copy. Let us know if you want a copy of the Canadian playbook for exporters. I want to set the scene as well. I know we're not really supposed to talk about sort of big stats, but I thought it'd be useful to give you a couple of just setting the scene, just so bear with me for these numbers. So 8 billion people on the planet, 5 billion of us use the internet, and nearly 5 billion use social media. And that's staggering enough, but the time spent per day on average, nearly 7 hours on the internet and 2.5 hours on social media. So for me, those stats are worth bearing in mind. So you really have a fully plugged in planet. And the point is, it is absolutely global. And here in Ontario, he's saying, "Oh well, I've got my phone. I've got my kids are on their phone. We're all on a computer all the time. Yes, we're really plugged in." Guess what? There's a lot of countries that are way more plugged in, that have way better access, that are much more engaged on the online world. This is just a stat. This large graph you have with the red arrow is Canada for online shopping. So Canada's right down there. All those countries to the left are more engaged in online shopping. For example, just as an example of that. So just to say, the online world is absolutely global and plugged in. And for us, it really talks about sort of the future of sales. If you're a small to mid-cap company, that's really, really good news for you. You know where your clients are, you know how to reach them. They are online and you reach them through your online assets. Your online assets are your websites and your online marketing. And what we're seeing, like a massive tidal wave coming at us, is this whole digital transformation, in which digital first. So today's buyers, yeah, they want to meet you at your booth, but if you send an email, they're going to check out your email, then they'll go to your website, find out who you are, check you out, think about it, maybe go into LinkedIn, find out if that's of interest to them. And then when they've decided that they want to meet with you, they will reach out to you on the platform that they want to use, whether that's LinkedIn, Facebook, directly to a booth. So it's omni-channel. The other thing that's really important to figure out with the web, and it's kind of paradoxical, but it's really important to understand, the web is this billions, trillions of data points, and AI and automated and all of that, algorithms, but it is always about a person. Whether you're marketing, whether you're doing any kind of marketing, anything, it's always about a person. And remember those emails that Erin was showing you. Those are in fact, those are emails where she knew exactly who the buyer persona was, and she knew how to send them, and she knew exactly what would interest them, because it was a very personal approach, in fact. So a trade show where you're meeting people face to face is absolutely essential, but bringing that personalization into your online strategy is just as critical. So basically, I mean, for us, your first takeaway from what we're looking at is, why do we think that you need those online business tools, whether that's Ask Polly or all kinds of social media or really good websites? It is because everyone you're doing business with, your prospects, your employees, your distributors, they will all look for you online in their own environment, the localized environment, and they will all reach out via social media. So please, especially if you're a small mid-cap company, it's something that has enormous returns on investment. Make sure that your online assets are working hard for you. So now let's talk a little bit about sort of the what I call the buyer persona, how you engage with your buyer persona, how you engage with your prospects at a trade show or otherwise. And this is a very messy, it's a deliberately messy sort of schema. Just the messy diagram on the right, you know, the customer is absolutely at the center of everything online. And again, if you hark back to what Erin was saying about, okay, it's all about them. I'm interested, I'm trying to get the journalists, I'm talking about them. So it's customer centric, it's searcher centric, and it's person centric. So what you need to do is figure out that person at the center there, how do you reach them? How do you engage with them? And that's really the key of very good online assets. And this is just a silly example of what happens in the internet. So I have a dog at home that barks during webinars, and I'm at home at the moment. And I'm sure she's going to come in and bark any minute now. So I have this squeakless dog toy. So if I'm in Halifax, I go onto Google, I type in English, squeakless dog toys, and I get these things. Here, doggy, flat tees, not spare, bustle.com, and so on. If I'm in London, UK, on Google, same, you know, in English, same words, squeakless dog toys, I get very different results. That's because Google, like anything on the web, is searcher person centric. So it knows where the person is, what their search criteria are, what their past is, what they're looking for, and it decides what's relevant for that person. So it is person centric. So if you have an Ontario Canadian website and you're going to search after US clients in California, chances are they're not going to find you very easily. And if you're looking for a German client, they're really going to struggle to find you and engage with you unless you figure out how to engage with them on their terms. So now let's talk a little bit about a buyer persona. And what is a buyer persona? You know, and how do you figure it out? I think Erin's example of that journalist was very interesting. That is, she figured out, I want journalists to look at me, and I want to have an interview with them, and I want them to interview me. Therefore, I need to connect with them. So I need to have, what are their concerns? What do they want to do? Where are they? How do they interact? So all the things that it conclude with a buyer persona and how you figure it out. But the key thing to remember is that a buyer persona is just that, it's a person. It's not the company that that person works for. It is the person itself that you want to look at. And again, I think it's a very telling example. I think it's something that speaks very well, very, very succinctly. So Zipcar's mission statement talks about urban dwelling, educated, techno-savvy customers who worry about the environment. Okay, that's part of their mission statement. You know, environmentally conscious, tech savvy. And they even have, you know, if you look at their advertisements, their Instagram examples, their Instagram image is exactly what their mission statement is about. They have figured out their buyer persona and they've reflected that in the image, even in some of the hashtags and in the tags. It's all about consistency with the mission statement. So that is a clear understanding of who their buyer persona is and an attempt to reach that buyer persona directly. Now, what happens internationally? Okay, here's another example. So here we have an image. This is L'Oreal USA. Okay, so it's the top floor of a building. Women all have great hair because it's L'Oreal. It's all going well. They're all engaged on computers and things and talking with each other. That's L'Oreal's figured out. L'Oreal spends a lot of time figuring out their buyer persona and that journey. If we look at Mexico, in L'Oreal Mexico, it's a different vibe. You know, it's more collegiate. They're all gathered around. There are two men in the picture. They're still on the top floor, still very urban, all that, but it's a different vibe. And L'Oreal have done this very deliberately. I'm really intrigued, and I like the one that they've chosen for Canada, the so-called mosaic, cultural mosaic of Canada. Again, a different image, a different thought that goes behind that. And I think we're thinking about for you as you think about your own buyer personas in the different markets. So if you're going to a US trade show, how does your US client, prospective client, reach you, think about you? How do they engage with you? So what are they? What is their buyer persona, and what is their journey? One of the key things to have in your toolbox is a website that is relevant to your local buyer. They will check you out. And if you've got a Canadian-centric website that has nothing about the US, then your US prospect says, do they actually know how to deal in the US? Or have they ever been outside Ontario? I mean, put in some case studies there. Show them that you can deal with them. So make sure that it's relevant to your local buyer. That's not about language. It's about a whole bunch of other criteria that come in. And one of the points as well about sort of this buyer's journey is knowing sort of this buyer's sort of life cycle. And this is a very simplistic view of it. It's the reason you do social media, the reason you do these emails, these MailChimps, these reach outs, is to drive people along a buyer's life cycle from one point to another, so that they become aware of you and of your services and your service provider, your list of your products. Then they say, oh well, maybe I could do this. I could compare you also with other companies, and then they might even go out and purchase from you in that sense. So this is the classic buyer's life cycle. And it's about, again, targeting and making sure that you're reaching the right people with the right message at the right time. And preparation, as you saw both from Maurizio's presentation and from Erin in her journey towards success at a trade show, preparation is absolutely key. So looking back at what Erin was talking about, understanding your buyer persona. In the example that Erin gave, it was about journalists. Preparing that and saying, okay, how does the journalist filter out the stories, the good ones and the bad ones? They do it in the following way. Let's follow that path. Then we create the content that they need to see, and then we hit them with the right platforms on the right platforms they want to go to. That preparation is key to the success of any trade show or any social media outburst. Just to give you an example about localization, and this again, I mean, I could give you thousands of different examples here, but just keywords are a classic example that you could say, if you're in the athletics business and you're going to the US and you're still wearing runners, then that's probably not a good idea. You want to talk about sneakers, not runners. So this is a silly example. Another example, which perhaps more telling, is comparing a country like Mexico, which is a very vibrant social media engagement area, to a place like Canada, where we tend to be very reserved, a bit shy, a bit, I'll check it out first. The same post, this is a Facebook ad we ran for a company, same post, same time, obviously one's in Spanish. We got 1,000, people are really pleased with our Canadian result. Mexico blew us out the water. We got people sending in their baby pictures. It was bizarre. And that's the way it is. That's a different market. They react in different ways. So their buyer persona in each market is different. And therefore the engagement is different. The way they react, their buyer's journey is different. So again, that whole idea of a localized social media approach. A localized means a personalized social media approach. And of course, a very highly structured media approach. Reaching the right people, as I said, with the right message at the right time, to really, be there when they want to engage with you. A couple of examples I wanted to throw up there as well. This is a company that was very keen to build their own brand. They're a lot of price pressure on this company. They invented the grill topper for barbecues. And they had a lot of price pressure. The only way that they could get rid of that price pressure and fight against it was to have a really strong brand and fight for their brand and the quality in their brand. And that's why they've really spent a lot of time looking at that brand side. Another company, I don't know if this is going to work. Yeah, it is a company which is, they make products which they make rust removals. But again, they wanted a very strong brand and they want to make it people-centric. They are very, very easy to do business with. That was the key for them. Just to be really easy, really personal on being in business with them. And I'm sorry, I'm not sure the video turned up very well on that one. Anyway, very easy doing business and very personal centric. Again, for a B2B company. Hello, there we go. Whoops. A lot of websites are there to drive leads to distributors. And again, that's a great way of managing and of owning your own brand. And we would really recommend you not to give your digital assets over to your distributors. There's one takeaway I would give you all. Do not hand your online assets to someone outside the company. Finally, I'm skipping through these very quickly. I mentioned earlier that e-commerce is something we're seeing as an absolute tidal wave coming through. I mean e-commerce in the largest possible sense, which is that people now, even B2B, expect to be able to go onto a company and say, I want one of these, send me a quote. That's basically e-commerce, except without a payment gateway. So again, try and think about how you can integrate some form of e-commerce functionality into your service offer. Latest trends, takeaways, and then Q&A. And I do see the questions coming up. So thank you very much for those. Keep popping them in for that. Hold on a second. Let's see if there's. I tell you what, I'm going to launch one last little poll before we go on to. If you want to learn more about websites, online marketing for your export markets, if you want us to send any assets or something, let us know, and we can send you the playbook. We can send you links to other webinars or infographics. We've got a ton of stuff. And again, thank you very, very much for the results. And for those of you who clicked yes, we will contact you with some assets and emails and things if you want. Thank you. I'm going to close this website now. This one, and then moving on to sort of latest trends. The latest trends could fill an entire webinar on their own. So I've just summarized them onto one slide. AI and to Aaron's point with Ask Polly is absolutely embedded now in the online world and in online marketing, whether we like it or not, regulated or not. There will be some problems. There will be a lot of bumps in the road, but it's there. It's actually, online marketing's been using AI for many, many years, but it's now come to really a major stepping stone with the LLMs. E-commerce, I mentioned already. It is really, please do look at your service and the way you're doing business in your sales process and see if there's not some form of, like a request a quote, like some kind of e-commerce functionality that you can integrate. It would, we're seeing this very strongly throughout. I wanted to emphasize again this whole notion of both this personalization and community that we're seeing. Again, the sort of dichotomy between a huge internet of billions of people and algorithms and trillions of data points, at the same time being highly personalized. And the only way you do that is if you really understand your buyer persona and your buyer's journey. Social commerce, that's basically selling online through social media. I'm sure you've all seen it. You go on Instagram and suddenly you're getting, or you go on anything and it'll circle back because your phones are all listening to you at all the time. Which also brings me to one of the last big trends we're seeing: increased emphasis and insistence on data privacy and online compliance. Please all make sure that your websites are compliant and secure and safe. The worst thing for your brand is having an unsafe online presence where they're then spreading viruses around. That does not do your brand any good. So takeaways: why do you need online tools? Because the world is online. So you need to make sure that your online assets work hard for you. Please do. The future of sales, as I've mentioned, very digital first. Omni-channel, be where your clients are. Don't force them to come. Don't be on X if nobody's on X. You don't be on Facebook if your clients are on LinkedIn. Be where they are. And then this real emphasis on customer-centric personalization. For us, we really emphasize again and again, your website, online marketing is your best sales rep. It is where people will check you out. If they meet you at a trade show, they get your business card, they'll go back and they'll say, let me check him out. What's his website? Where is he? What do they like? And the first impression takes 2 seconds. So again, that localized website for us is really important, about respecting that local buyer persona. So, we thought it would be fun. We thought it might be useful for you guys to, if you wanted to get an audit of your website, you guys are not, this is not, we don't offer this for huge webinars, but this is a very focused webinar for Ontario exporters. So we thought we could do this. If you would like a free of charge website and SEO report on your website, let us know, and we will send that to you by email. And it's just an email that says, here's your report, and it'll attach. It's about a 6 or 7 page report about your current website. And if you'd like that, let us know. We'll send that to you, and that'll give you a good head start about saying whether your website is secure and safe, whether it's SEO optimized, whether it's mobile friendly, whether it's fast uploading, downloading, etc. So if you would like that, please let us know. Oh, thank you. Overwhelming yes for that. Thank you. I'll close that. And now I think we're going to go into. I just wanted to say as well. I guess the final point is don't do this. Don't do this alone. Don't go international on your own. It's challenging, and there's a lot of helping hands. From ASI and Aaron to Maurizio and Ontario Export. I mean, there's so many things that they're to help you. Maurizio has an absolute wealth of information and experience and can help you with all of this. So with that, I'll turn to a whole bunch of questions that have come in. Well, there's quite a few also just interesting comments. For example, it'd be interesting to know if there's a poll out there for those heading to CES. How many people are you bringing to the show? That would be kind of fun to put out as well. Maurizio, just a couple of little questions for you. One is, are there any grants for the trade show? Are there any grants to help at the attendance of the trade show?
Our programs are highly subsidized by the Ontario government already. There is a fee, but it covers a fraction of the entire cost. In addition to that, Ontario companies, Canadian companies can apply to the federal program Can Export, which gives them up to 50% non-repayable grant. However, applications are closed for the time being. It's not up to me, it's up to the federal government, but soon they will reopen. Again, our programs are highly subsidized. There is a fee, but it's much, much lower than on Europe.
Thank you. Another question, I don't know, but perhaps for Maurizio and then for Aaron, is there a good way, I'm combining two questions, is there a good way of judging the return on investment of trade shows for a company?
I'll take a stab at it first. For us, it has to make sense. We aim for minimum $100,000 in sales per company as a result of our programs. But it varies. I mean, I have one I organize. The return on investment is huge. It's in the millions. So it really ultimately is up to the company's products, their strategy, and how they follow up.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely recognize it in terms of sales. I think you have to also make sure that you're getting good people at your booth, good prospects. Now, one of the things I'd say is at CES, we're in the countries area, so you get a lot of people, hey, I'm coming because I'm Canadian, or some of them work for governments and different organizations. If that's not your target market, you have to find a way to get the people who are coming to your booth, because the ones who just happen to come by will not necessarily be your target market unless you're selling into government or your market is Canada, because we found we got a lot of people who came over because they were Canadian, not necessarily because they were the target market. So you really do have to work to get people to want to come to your booth purposely.
Thanks. Yeah. Well, it was nice to see another Canadian, but I do understand that doesn't bring out sales. So, just from our side, when we're doing trade show work with our companies, we typically take a minimum of 6 times the cost. So we expect sales 6 times the total cost. The total cost is not just the cost of the booth. We factor in management time. You need to factor in, obviously, travel, hotels, as much budget as you can. Is the total cost of the trade show. We also factor in something called an opportunity cost. So there's the CEO of the company or the head of sales of the company not going to something else, not doing something else, spending 3 days at an event. That is a billable thing, a quantifiable thing.
One thing I'll add too, because somebody had asked about how many people to send.
Yeah.
If you're having a booth, then you need at least 3 people, because it gets really exhausting to be standing there 8 hours a day. So you need somebody that's out on the floor directing people to your booth. You need somebody working the booth, and you kind of need like just the relief person, you know what I mean? Like people need to take breaks, they need to go to the bathroom. So I would say now if you can't afford a booth or what have you, you just want to go to the show, then 1 person is enough. You're networking, you're working the floor, you're going to the parties, you're talking to people on the bus. I got a big contract for the person sitting beside me on the bus. Talk to the people on the bus, okay? Like talk to the people on the plane. Now you don't want to be annoying. Let me show you my product, whatever. Just, hey, try to strike up a conversation. You're always on when you're at the conference. But if you're doing a booth, you need at least 3 people, is what I would say.
Absolutely, absolutely. There's a few more little questions, but they're quite specific and industry specific. We've also overrun our time, so I don't want to abuse that. And I wanted to thank you all for taking the time today to talk to us, to listen to us, to share experiences, and most of all to thank Maurizio and Erin for joining me today and talking about social media and trade shows.
I see my email's not on here, but I'm at, you can write me at erin.kelly@askpoly.ai if you want to follow up, if you want some data for your presentations or what have you, or just to put some ideas. I'm happy to help.
I apologize, Erin. How did that happen? I do apologize. Maybe I put it in the chat box. How about that? Sorry, okay. Erin. But okay. Indeed, but if you go to the website, you can find the contact details. How about that? Maurizio, thank you very much. Erin, thank you again for joining, and also my colleague Ava. And then I wanted to thank you all for joining and spending some time with us today. I wish you all the best at various trade shows. Happy to see you online, offline, and whatever. Take care, and season's greetings to everybody too. Thank you all very, very much.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.